Good morning and welcome to Live Oak Unitarian Universalist Congregation. Yesterday morning in this sanctuary, Reverend Tamara did a beautiful job of facilitating an informational and engaging workshop on the topic of worship. We learned about the definition and purpose of worship, the history and various approaches to worship, as well as all that goes into creating a meaningful worship experience for Live Oak members and friends. We learned that the most basic definition of the word worship is to acknowledge that which is worthy. To acknowledge that which is worthy. As you travel your own unique spiritual path, whether you are here for the first time or so many times that you've lost count, may you be held by this beloved community as we worship together, acknowledging what is worthy in this beautiful life. You are welcome here.
Our call to worship this morning comes from my colleague, Manish Mishra Marzetti. Between rocking the boat and sitting down, between stirring things up and going along peaceably, we find ourselves here in community, each called from many different journeys, many different life paths onto this river road. Some are here because the rocking of the boat has been too much tumult, too much uncertainty, too much pain. Some are here with questions about where the boat is going, how best to steer it, where this journey ends. Others are here as lovers of the journey, lovers of life itself, here in front, beside, behind, each a passenger, each a captain, doing the best we can. Rest here in your boat with me, the river calls. Listen to how I flow, the sound of life coursing all around you. Let the current hold you. Let the current guide you. The river that gently flows through your soul whispers, "Come, let us worship."
Hello, good morning. My name is Frank Thompson, and I am here to talk to you about recipes for success. That's what this is. Everything is built around that today. Sweet. This is the theme for our annual Stewardship and Campus. And so I want to tell you that it's going to be built around fun and food and fellowship. So how can we go wrong with those three, right?
Yeah.
All right. So this will occur this year between the 12th of April, so really next week, through the 25th of April. And we've got an idea. We have people signed up to offer 14 different dates, which would include brunch, lunch, and dinner, so you have a wide choice. And each one of those events will be a themed potluck. So what we've got is the idea that 10 people, including the host, would come together for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on the conversation. And that of the 10 people there, 5 would bring potluck dishes for food. One can bring the drinks, and the other 4 can come for the fun. So not everybody has to cook, and unfortunately, not all of us are good cooks, but we'd like to enjoy good cooking, and so you're free to come enjoy the fun and the fellowship, and try to make it as easy as possible and include everybody in it. So one of the things that we'll do there that's very important is we're going to be sharing about our connections to Live Oak. And I want to name 2 feelings that I have very strongly this morning in just a moment, and that is a belonging. Even though, I was away for studying at school, yet every time I come back here, I'm welcomed right back, and people want to know what's going on. I want to know what's going on with them. So to me, the belonging is a really important value here. And the other one that I want to name this morning particularly is gratitude, because when you're in this position, and every time you approach somebody in this season, they know you're coming to ask for I've had some beautiful interactions with people, even when they said, "Hey, I can't cook." And I said, "Who knew?" But I said yes. So I really do want to say genuinely how grateful I am, because I've asked many, many people to do many jobs. And I want to finish up by telling you now, I'm going to ask each of you today to, we have sign-up sheets for the 14 events. And it's kind of like the auction sign-up. You pick out the event that you want that works with your calendar, sign up today, and we'll provide that to the host, and the host will be in contact with you about the menu and what we're going to be doing. And so the last thing I want to say is that we have this idea, and I think it's a good one, that we're going to ask people to bring their recipes for the plates that they prepare, dishes they prepare. And we're going to take a photograph of their food, and we're going to make a cookbook when we're done. And so at the annual meeting in June, we're going to have both electronic cookbooks that you can use for those with iPads next to their stove and are with them all the time, and also paper cookbooks for those that like to spill the eggs and molasses on it like me. So, all right. So anyways, again, the recipes for success, we're going to have a great deal of fun, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Frank. He's done such a wonderful job of coming up with this idea and the way that we're going to have fun being together for these dinners. And I do want to stress the fact that these meals are open to everyone, members, friends. If you're visiting, come on, come have fun with us. It's going to be a really wonderful opportunity. We hope everyone participates. Some of us with muscles and nerves singing in the full flush of youth, some with quiet confidence, and some perhaps weary, born with the failures, the years, and the passing of strength. And still others, the men and women determined, filled with the zeal of battle for justice yet to be, and for truth still denied or undiscovered. Each and all of us, wherever we be, must come to the time when we need to be still. There comes a time when we must know the need to go apart and meditate, to seek the meaning of our lives, to reconsider the purposes we've accepted, and to establish peace within ourselves. The world presses on us too insistently. The appetites too imperiously demand of us, and we forget to be real persons in ourselves. May this moment be one of redemption, of renewal of faith in life and the living of it. May the disciplines of humility and courage be strengthened from this time. May it bring a rediscovery of self and a lifting of the heart with a sense of the newness from that discovery. New courage, fresh vigor, and a deeper thoughtfulness for the living of life from this day. Please join me in a time of silent reflection. Before I start my sermon this morning, I just wanted to share with you that in the time of meditation that we do each week, I use my time to send out love and compassion to members of the congregation. And so as I was doing that, I remembered that I had neglected to lift up joy and sorrow that our dear Liesl has been in the hospital, and she is now out of the hospital and at home and doing well. She would appreciate cards of love and support at this time. She's dealing with a medical situation, so she doesn't want visitors or phone calls, but if you can send a card to her, she would appreciate it. So today, we begin our annual stewardship season where we ask each and every one of us to think deeply about the value of this community and this faith, Unitarian Universalism, in our lives. And Frank came up with a fun idea of the theme for this season as recipes for success. And the photo that you see on the screen shows an incredible looking, it's a Moroccan meal made up of the individual dishes which together make a wonderful feast. And my apologies to anyone who skipped breakfast this morning. You're going to have to look at it for a while now. When I was in high school, I remember going to some sort of a youth conference where it was with teens for leadership, some sort of leadership conference for teens from all over California. And one of the activities that we did there was to write our own epitaph. And at the time, we thought it was kind of a morbid and weird activity. We were like 17, 18 years old. But it must have made an impact because all these years later, I still remember it. And I wrote something that I wanted to do good with my life. I wanted to make a positive impact on the world and contribute to the positive and the constructive. And I remember that one guy, I didn't know him, he had come from somewhere else, he scoffed at me, and he kept making fun of me all weekend. He would call me Polly for Pollyanna the rest of the weekend because, you know, I was a do-gooder. I wanted to do good and think good thoughts. And I think his epitaph must have had something to do with being a wealthy person and having lots of cars and a big house and that definition of success. And I invite each of us to maybe think about doing this. Write your own epitaph. Write your own epitaph and focus on the qualities that you want to be remembered for. And then once we're clear on what we want to be remembered for, examine the way that we live to make sure that those two things are congruent. I doubt that many of us would agree with that youth that is the sign of success is money accumulated. Indeed, it's said that on their deathbed that no one says, I wish I had more money. Usually, and I have experienced this myself, it's, I wish I spent more time with family or friends or had been more generous in my life. But the understanding of this sort of American consumerist culture that we're bathing in has taught us all the way from Sunday morning cartoon commercials onward that we will be happier and better looking and healthier and more popular if we just bought a certain product, right? Just do this and you'll have it made. Perhaps the most culturally challenging action in this hyper-driven consumer society of ours may be to give money away, to give our wealth away, to benefit others, either individuals or groups. Because in addition to this definition of success in the American dream, and I'll put that in quotes, of wealth, media messaging constantly also fuels fears of economic insecurity. Even when we are in boom economic times. How many times have we heard ominous rumblings about the Social Security and Medicare and another recession around the corner? So these kinds of issues they keep feeding us these messages. And our culture is really not an easy one to be generous in. In our hymn, Spirit of Life, we sing, roots hold me close, wings set me free. But perhaps this line doesn't just refer to grounding ourselves in our faith, but it might also point to our tendency as human beings to want to hold on to resources and people, and we feel anxious and we feel fearful. But holding on tightly does not free us. It's through generosity that we are able to let go and be free. Generosity of spirit and generosity of giving. For me, and perhaps for many of us, this is an ongoing spiritual discipline. The theologian Henri Nouwen writes, "Every time I take a step in the direction of generosity, I know that I am moving from fear to love." Generosity includes this idea of open-handedness, freely giving more than necessary, more than expected. Generosity means being reasonable and optimistic, not fearful, when we need to ensure our own survival and the survival of those we love. It also requires a certain openness to others, the ability to be moved and inspired and hopeful, and to act on those emotions. Generosity is tied to the concept of giving freely from a spiritual center. It comes from the Latin generosus, which means noble and magnanimous. And magnanimous in turn comes from the Latin meaning great soul. Wouldn't we all want to be great souls? All that we understand to be true about poverty and wealth and cautiousness with our own resources and generosity, we've learned from somewhere. We've learned through our families, we've learned through life experiences that thinking that we're rich or poor is to some extent contextual and subjective. You might feel extremely rich living on a small amount of money, while someone else who has much more money lives in a constant state of fear and anxiety, feeling impoverished. But the good news is that we can choose which of our beliefs we want to keep and which we want to revise. And that means that we're all able to work on this spiritual discipline of generosity. Each week, I stand up here in front of you and I say, "This generous congregation," and I truly mean it. I have experienced each and every person here as generous in many ways. There's the important aspect of the financial generosity, which enables us to continue to grow and flourish and to include more people in what we found here and to reach out week after week into our community and do good work. We are a generous group building this congregation through the work of our various ministries. Each of us is generous already in ways both large and small. Sometimes we're generous in small or specific instances, but my challenge to you is to look at this as a spiritual discipline in your life and see if you can boldly commit to living a life of generosity every day with all the resources you have available. Build on the strength that you already are a generous person and go from there. On Valentine's Day, about a month and a half ago, I gave a sermon about big love, about paying it forward. And in that service, we had a reverse offertory. Remember that? Where the congregation was invited to participate in an exercise of generosity. Those choosing to participate received envelopes of money, and then they were asked to do some good in the world and report back to me. I think I called it a spiritual stimulus package, taking the love and generosity of this faith community out beyond our walls. And I was blown away by the wonderful and creative thoughts of generosity, acts of generosity, and paying it forward that this amazing group came up with. And I thank you all, truly, from the bottom of my heart, for engaging in this exercise in the spirit in which it was intended. And I'm going to share with you some of the results because they were really amazing. And if I skip yours, I'm sorry. I just want to say that ahead of time because I had so many emails coming at me and I read every single one and was appreciative of every single one. But if I skip saying yours, don't worry. So some of you chose to support worthy organizations. This decision for some was an immediate decision. They knew what they were going to do with the money. and others took a long and circuitous journey to arrive at which organization they would give their money to. We donated to the Equal Justice Initiative, providing legal representation to prisoners who have been denied fair and just treatment in the legal system. We donated to buy waters and filters that went to Flint, Michigan. We donated to Common Dreams, a website that brings news and views to the progressive community. Multiple donations to Santa Barbara Food Bank and Showers of Blessings. We donated to an organization working on separation of church and state issues, to kiva.org, which is a group that provides loans to people without access to traditional banking systems, to Deworm the World, where pennies a day change children's lives, and also a donation that I thought was really interesting to one of the charities listed on our tax returns. I thought that was pretty interesting. One thing to point out is that some of the people who accepted this invitation chose the challenge of taking this money and seeing how much difference their $5 or $10 would make, and others took the money as seed money and added generously to what they had been given. A second large category of support was for children and children's organizations. Camp Think, the YMCA Summer Camp Fund, the Santa Barbara Music Club Scholarship Fund, a direct donation to a teacher to help reimburse him for those multiple out-of-pocket expenses that teachers do all the time. And then a 6th grade teacher who used the idea of Pay It Forward to spark her students as they learned writing skills. She wrote, "They were very excited when I explained the premise and showed them that $5 bill with your note. They brainstormed ideas, and then they wrote a paragraph on what it means to pay it forward, and then they wrote another persuasive paragraph stating what they thought we should do with the money, $5. After all was said and done, the decision was made to give the money to DAWG, a local dog adoption and welfare group. This was truly a multi-layered paying it forward. I love that the teacher took it and expanded it so. But by far the largest group decided to pay it forward through direct action. For some, this was an eye-opening first. For some, this decision came after the realization that most of their normal giving was done indirectly and missing a kind of human touch. Some splurged on treats for friends who were going through a rough time, or a special treat for a struggling single mom. One bought pizzas and had her teenage grandchildren hand them out to several clusters of people without homes. A good number of people put the money towards handing out snack bars or brown bags with water and several healthy high-cal snacks. One family created 27 bags to hand out. And some handed cash or gift cards directly to people in need. I am convinced that our local Trader Joe's is the place to be, as so many of us shared with people in front of our favorite store. One person noted the judgment in her thinking as she became aware of this process of giving. She wrote, "There was a man sitting outside the store with a sign that said, 'Anything helps.' I noticed that he was a relatively young man, clean, and didn't look very needy. I saw that I was judging this, thinking, why is he sitting here? Normally I wouldn't have stopped, but this was an exercise he set for us, so I asked him if I could buy him some food. When I gave him the food items, he was really happy and thanked me. What an interesting exercise and insight into my judging mind. The impact of your invitation is that I've decided to make a weekly donation to whomever I encounter there. How freeing. Remember my comment earlier about through generosity, we're able to let go and be free. Another wrote, I spent the $10 received on a meal with a homeless man, my own age, for the hopeful purpose of us understanding and learning from each other. I wanted to know why or how he was in this situation. What I saw was, frankly, an embarrassing image of myself. As they say, there but for the grace of God. In short, it was a very humbling experience. This small exercise had such a great impact in having us all explore what I was speaking of earlier, our preconceived notions and assumptions around success and wealth and security, scarcity and abundance and generosity. Comments such as, "This challenged me to think of more ways I might be able to make a difference." And the joy that was expressed by so many as they gave freely from this spiritual center as great souls. $1 here, $1 there is not much help to anyone living in the street, but I, for one, have benefited from the engagement I've had with the people I met. He was so thankful, what joy it brought to help him out. She was extremely thankful and happy, and it felt great. The folks were very friendly and thanked the kids profusely. The kids came back full of smiles and a feeling of being proud of themselves. I loved it, and I'm going to make this a regular adventure for us. One more story. I noticed a guy sitting on the ground as we were going into the store. His sign read, "Just trying to survive." As I returned the cart, I stopped by this young man and handed him the $5 bill and said, "I hope this helps you survive. It's from my minister." He looked at the bill and answered, "That's what it's all about for me. I just want to survive." I asked him how he planned to do that, to survive, and out came his story. He had been a certified welder who had an accident. A sharp piece of metal had somehow cut into his skull. Now he was unable to work as a welder or even to drive. "Maybe I can get some other training," he said. And then we talked about his interests, about local vocational programs. I plan to return next Sunday to continue the conversation, bringing information, and of course, I'll bring another $5 bill. What becomes clear after that encounter is that there are so many who could use a helping hand and a friendly conversation. And I suspect that because there are so many, most of us become convinced that we can't make a dent in the problem. We can't make a difference. But maybe that's short-sighted. Certainly, not all will translate this act of kindness and encouragement to move on with their lives. But some might, and that has to be good enough. If we can just try to help and thus make a difference, one difference at a time, we might just influence others to do the same. I suppose I am sufficiently naive to believe that it just might work. I am too. Love spread from people in this congregation, this generous congregation, out to our community. One person wrote, "Let's do it again, it's a win-win." And to that I say a resounding yes. Living a life of generosity means paying attention to the spiritual discipline in your life as you boldly commit to living a life of generosity every day with every resource available. Our faith, our Unitarian Universalist faith, is one of radical hospitality, a radically inclusive community in an exclusionary world. The core of our identity lies in the quality of those relationships that we have with each other and to the congregation as a whole, which then lead us out into the world. It lies in the covenant and the commitment that we make to walk together in mutual support on our journeys, and the desire to take what we found here and invite others to come in and share and go out into our community. We do not have a fee for service here at Live Oak. Instead, we raise the funds to be able to fully live our mission, that we are a liberal religious community welcoming all. Our generations join together to nurture spiritual growth and personal transformation, that we may be inspired to transform the world with love, hope, compassion, and justice. That's our mission statement. It's on the front of every single order of service. This is where we come week after week to learn what it means to be human. This is where we come week after week to grow in the many spiritual disciplines that enrich not only our own lives, but also help us make real this vision of a beloved community on a healthy earth with all her people living as one. Each and every one of us brings our vital gift, our vital dish to the grand feast that we call Live Oak. We bring our own recipe for success. Success is connecting our giving with our values and our beliefs and priorities as we pledge our financial resources as well as our time and our intelligence and our presence and our muscle sometimes to this beloved spiritual home. As your minister, I pledge a percentage of my net salary and housing, even though I'm not an official member of the congregation. And I feel that it's important to share with you what that amount is. This current year, I'm pledging 5.5% of my net, because although it stretches my family and me financially, I want you to know that I'm not up here asking you to do something that I'm not doing myself. Every time we take a step in the direction of generosity, we move from fear to love. And as we enter into our time of fun and fellowship with our canvas dinners, and we talk about the importance of Live Oak in our lives, I invite you to carry forward your generous and great souls as you support this beloved and unique congregation and the vision that we hold up to build this beautiful world. Blessings on all of you, and amen. Half of our offering this morning will go to Goleta Head Start. Head Start child development programs serve children from birth to age 5, and they also serve pregnant women and their families. These are child-focused programs, and they have the overall goal of increasing school readiness for young children in low-income families. A wonderful cause. I invite you to give generously to this worthwhile program and to our congregation. Beautiful. Yes, special thanks to our choir who stepped up. Would you please join hands for our benediction? Our faith, this congregation, is dedicated to the proposition that behind all our differences and beneath all our diversity, there is a unity that binds us forever together and makes us one, in spite of time and death and the space between the stars. Let us pause in silent witness to that unity. And may the blessings of love be upon you. May love's peace abide with you. And may love's presence illuminate your heart now and forevermore. Blessed be. Namaste. And now, as we extinguish the light of our communal chalice, now is when our service truly begins.